Go ahead and register for the beta at www.smitetactics.com. It's important you grab that prefix. If you leave it out, you won't wind up in a good place. But my favorite part about Smite Tactics is the fact that Scott Gandhi's on it, because watching Scott Gandhi be excited about stuff, like, I would watch an entire YouTube channel of just Scott Gandhi excited for 5 minutes.
I would just listen to his podcast the whole time around, actually. Just his voice would soothe me as I take a gentle bubble bath or if I'm going to sleep, you know?
No, I don't. Scott Gandhi's a voice I'm going to listen to if I'm going to, like, race in a NASCAR race or something, not to go to sleep with. But in any event, keeping up the excitement, we've got two more exciting matches for you guys this afternoon. Denial versus SoaR, and then Enemy is going to take on SoaR. I'm joined by a friend of mine. It is Polar Bear Michael. How you doing, big guy?
I'm doing good. How about you guys? Actually, not really good, but, you know. Rough land, I guess.
I'm just going to leave you hanging
out. Yeah, what was that, man? You just left me out to dry. What?
Oh, man. First time roasted,
You're just
man.
farming me. Come on. I've had enough of that this weekend.
Who got farmed the hardest?
What, like at LAN?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely me. They, like, quad banned me and just, like, drafted Nem and, like, just freaking all-in me every fight. I hated it. Not fun.
Well, you guys have a shot at the gauntlet, and you know that's not a shot at you. I legitimately think the gauntlet will be a fun watch, and I think you guys have a good shot. Are you guys gonna? So, did you hear about one of the rules about the gauntlet? Is that there is no roster lock. So, who's getting booted?
Oh, I'm gone. I can just take the jersey off right now if you want. Like, it's over.
I got a hi-rez jersey for you.
I don't think we'll make changes. Like, this LAN was kind of rough. I can't really go into detail because we do still have matches to play, but I think like 60% of the gods we wanted to play either weren't available or we didn't think were good into certain comps, so we really just didn't. It's not that we didn't prepare for the LAN meta, we just guessed wrong.
I feel that. To be honest, from the outside looking in, I think there was more positive than negative, especially when you reflect back on the way the fall split went. So upsides for Envy in the future, perhaps. But for now, we're going to borrow Polar Bear Mike and his brain. We're going to pick it on the analyst desk. One of my honestly, one of my favorite players to really get into the nitty gritty when it comes down to it. So Denial versus SoaR. It's the Orange Dogs versus the Purple S and the 2 or whatever the hell their logo is. We'll see how this one works out. SoaR, obviously the heavy favorite here. Denial, on the other hand, they've had some surprise sucker punches. Where do you think Denial are really grabbing their power from?
I think a lot of it is from Homie and Hurry. When they're trapped under their tower, that's kind of what we did in our set. Like, it wasn't really that impactful of games, but when you can push them under their tower, they have a lot more problems making plays and freeing up Benji. And if they get pressure in their lane, like the Ryzen they normally draft every game, it's to get mid-pressure, and then Homie and Shadowq can roam as 3 with Hurry, and then they just kill everybody.
On the flip side, though, just to stop the momentum out of Andinster from SoaR, what do you think Denial are going to be doing trying to not allow Andinster, whatever he plays, honestly, to start invading those speed buffs?
I think Thor is a highly contested pick. I think all of the junglers that Homie and Andy like kind of overlap, so I think those are going to be really controlled picks and bans, and they're probably going to be, the junglers are probably just going to be first pick, first banned every game.
They definitely have a lot of shared ones. They like the Ao Kuang, they like the Thor.
The Nem as well.
Do you think those 3 are going to be just, you know, for whoever's first pick, you think they're going to have the advantage by banning 2 and then first picking the other?
Yeah, definitely. The thing that's interesting is normally the second pick team will go ahead and ban Terra, but Shadow doesn't really want it from first pick, so when Denial is first pick, they ban Terra. So I think it makes it really easy for SoaR to just target ban Homie.
It seems that Shadowq will prefer to pick anything, honestly. Like, even with Terra being banned, it doesn't seem like anyone this group specifically even cares for the Fafnir. We've seen that just fall out of contention completely. Online stages, it was heavily prioritized going for the objective control, but it seems that teams prefer more of these pick-oriented comps. Is that the same mentality that you guys have?
I think Fafnir just isn't reliable enough. He just doesn't, like a hammer doesn't, a single target stun doesn't really turn a fight as hard as, you know, a giant taunt or a giant Bacchus flop or Terra, like rooting everybody and healing their team. So I think it's just that.
And those supports are there to really sort of set up everything, and we've seen a lot of success out of that long lane, honestly, from Vetium specifically. I feel like he had a relatively quiet 2016 in general, not just the fall split, but the spring split as well. But he's certainly turning it up here at LAN. What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest takeaway when you're playing against Vetium that you got to watch out for?
He just plays very safe. He's hard to gank, and he's a really good hyper carry. He's really well positioned in between his team, and he can just, you know, pick off targets one by one.
Well, he's certainly doing it on the ROM this weekend. Vetium, he's, like I said, he's at a quiet 2016, but he's here at LAN, and he's making a resurgence.
Vetium's a really nice guy, and I don't know anything about Vetium.
Vetium, I look at him as like a textbook hunter, you know, like he never does anything too flashy, which is like, you know, what you want to kind of do in the hunter role. You just want to chill back and land autos, and he's definitely one of the best at that.
It's kind of boring to play against him, but he's like a budget Barracuda.
He's a lot different from a player like Zap, where they'll always take a fight with you, they'll always box. Vetium will take the fight when he knows that he has an advantage.
Vetium tends to be ungankable. He's very hard to kill, but he will never push his lead. He's very passive. I don't feel like if I give him a lead, he's going to get like solo kills almost ever, which is a good thing and a bad thing because you'll never kill him, but then you'll never get ahead. So if he's fed, it'll be fed for the team fight, and that'll be the end of it.
Vetium has like the lowest sensitivity out of any Smite player, and it's definitely bad. He has to flick his wrist on the smallest mouse pad. Is that you, Vetium? Oh my god.
I think he told you guys Vetium just to mess with you, and then it stuck, and then he just kind of called himself Vetium for a few months, and he changed it back.
Yeah, that's pretty much our relationship with Vetium or Vetium, or I think they muted me for that last one, but I won't repeat it. Denial, SoaR! Here we go. Left side, they got the first pick. Denial seem to have really, like Polar Bear Mike was talking about, they're centered around the H&H. Homie and Hurry have really been able to help Denial sort of find their footing, and then Vetium has really been doing some of the heavy lifting come late game. Where do you think their pick ban strategy lies?
I think their pick ban strategy is going to be revolved around the junglers, like Polar Bear Mike was saying about these three highly contested picks between both Homie and Andinster. They really prefer the Ao Kuang, the Nemesis, and the Thor. But electing to take away the Giannis right off the bat is a good strategy because if they first pick a jungler, they're going to leave that Giannis open.
Yeah, I was actually going to say I expect them to take away Janice and Terra here because Hurriwind doesn't really want to play it, and Snoopy has played it, I think, his last 3 or 4 games pretty well.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, Snoopy seems to... So here's actually a question before I go into what I was about to say. Is the idea that Snoopy is still struggling with God selection in the mid lane, is that a fallacy or is that true?
I don't think he is. I think SoaR is just a team where if they find a few gods that they think are really good, they're kind of stuck on them for a bit. Okay. So if Snoopy struggles, I think it's more common that it's because, you know, their team as a unit isn't playing well with that god more than him. He's just such a good mechanical player. I don't think it's ever just him.
Works out. Well, there's the Giannis and the Terra bans that we were discussing. SoaR has one ban left. It'll be the Ao Kuang. Definitely don't want to give Homiefe that god. I think that's almost an auto win, honestly, at this point, watching Homie play that god.
And now there's 2 of the 3 gods that we were talking about for the jungle. Both the Thor and the Nemesis are available. I wouldn't be surprised if Denial elect to leave both of them open because I don't expect SoaR to pick Nemesis and Thor. Denial, if they wanted to, they could go for the Ra first pick.
I'd expect Ra, Athena, or Bacchus. The Athena Bacchus would depend if Shadow really prefers one over the other. Otherwise, Ra could be good, but I don't recall. Has Denial played it so far this LAN?
The Ra? No, they have not.
I think they've been first pick a lot of games, and they've banned it against other teams rather than looking to pick it. So it's interesting to see what they'll do.
I think he did play Ra that one game, and then he got countered by the Odin. I think that was Hurriwind playing the Ra. But either way, it's going to be the Bacchus first pick. Shadowq really likes this god very heavily. They always group up in the level 1 5-on-5 play. Tell me about Shadowq's mentality, the reasoning why he really likes to group up as 5, especially with Bacchus.
Shadow just feels that it's his job to try to make plays and be aggressive and initiate, and Bacchus is just so good at that. It also takes away from Jigz playing Bacchus. That's one of his best gods. So it gives Shadow a god that he can always go in whenever he finds somebody out of position, and it's easier for his team to follow up, and it targets it away from Jigz.
Yeah, Shadow will take this god virtually every time it's up. We've seen it happen this LAN. SoaR, on the other hand, you're going to go with the Ra, like we were talking about. Snoopy has had a lot of success in this Ra. And the Thor, I mean, anytime you want to pick it, anytime you can add a Thor to the mix, it's certainly going to be a good look.
A little bit of anti-healing option with the Bacchus being able to limit some of the sustain coming out of Snoopy, but now it seems that there's going to be more an all-in potential. Normally, when you get the Bacchus, you want to pair this up with a Nemesis. Whoever Nemesis ulties, that's going to be the primary target. A lot of good long-range artillery coming out of Hurriwind with Agni.
I actually think it's a little odd that they went for the Thor there over the Nem, because I think Denial got the exact 3v3 that they wanted. They like Agni against the Ra. It's really hard for the Ra to push up on waves, and the Bacchus Nem combo just will one-shot anybody. So It'll be interesting to see what SoaR wants to match up with this from their support. I'd assume they have a plan, knowing that those were most likely the Denial top 3 picks.
I love to see Nemesis on Homiefe. We always talk about how he's this heavy carry jungler, and Nemesis is more of a utility pick, but it can be a heavy carry in the right hands, and I like to see when Homie does that. The Agni selection. What I liked about the Nemesis and Agni has nothing to do with the gods themselves, but how quickly they were locked in. We always sort of gesture towards that, but we never really discuss that. What does that mean when a team knows exactly what they want to play?
It just means they had a plan and they got the plan they wanted. Also, I could be wrong, but I think this is the first game the entire land that SoaR has not picked Jigz as support top 3. So it'll be interesting to see if they go to target ban a couple of his comfort picks, maybe like a SoaR.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot, even going first pick for Jigz. And yeah, the SoaR's going to be banned right away, and I think Denial picked up on that as well. To be honest with you, I don't think Jigz has a small god pool. I don't think it's something that he's going to struggle with. But he's just very extra powerful, I think, on some of these selections, SoaR being one of them.
I think, honestly, with Thor and Raw for your mid jungler, it doesn't really matter what support you have with it, right? There's just so many options. Even with SoaR being banned away, Terra as well. You have Ymir, you have Athena that's also available. Kumbhakarna is another great setup god. So saving Jigz's pick for later on and prioritizing Metyankey's Soul pick here, he's been one of these quiet killers playing the Soul this whole weekend, I feel like.
Yeah, Met never really gets much said about him. He just kind of does his job. He actually destroyed Denial with Soul yesterday.
Yep.
And once he gets farmed with it and he gets his Obsidian Shard online, that's the main power spike, then he can really do a lot of work in fights.
So I had this conversation with Yannick before on the desk. Soul, I think you have to acknowledge Barracuda, and you have to acknowledge Metyankey when it comes to Soul. But outside of that, just speaking in general about the character, where do you think her relative value lies? Do you think she's very good? Do you think she's trash? It seems like different teams and different people sort of value this god differently.
It's kind of odd to say, but I think she's like the Thor of ADC, and when I say that, I mean, if you look at the other NA group, Group B, none of the junglers really play Thor. Weekend and DJ not known for Thor, so nobody touches it. But here, 3 of the 4 junglers all have a really good Thor, so it gets first pick, first ban, multiple games.
It just seems that every single group brings their own style, right?
Yeah,
we saw Group A was the tank meta, Group B was kind of like the snipe montage meta with the Scyllas and the Raws. Group C was a little bit of mixture of both, whereas the only Ao Kuang bans from Group C was against Energy. But how come we don't see any Ao Kuang necessarily so much? Do you think that all these junglers prefer it so highly as well compared to Energy?
I just think that in NA, you usually value pressure a lot more, and Ao Kuang early game isn't as great, so sometimes teams are a little hesitant to go to it. I'm actually interested to see if they lock in that Ymir. Jigz has practiced it in ranked for a couple months now, and I think it's a pocket pick for him, but he may not go for it.
And it makes sense because you're dealing with Nemesis dash, Agni dash, Amaterasu dash, those 3 gods not going to be able to really get through the wall, but electing to swap it to the Fafnir at the last second, going to synergize pretty well with Soul in the mid to late game.
Yeah, Soul, even the Vamana as well, getting hit with the Coerce is going to be a big deal. Denial, however, again, talking about how quickly they locked in the Nemesis and Agni. Neith on Vetium, one of the few players that I actually get excited to play a Neith. I think Denial are looking really hot before we get into this one. What's your final take, PBM?
I think the Neith is key to this. I think when you look at SoaR's comp with the Fafnir and the sustain from Raw, their sieging and their objective control is a lot better. I think Denial's key to victory here is to try to find single target picks with the Nemo. And also, having Vetium play well on that Neith, they need to shut down Baskin early. In the game they won yesterday, they killed Baskin twice in 4 minutes. I think they're going to look to do the same.
Exactly. We saw a lot of rotations from Shadowq. The Neith ultimate Nemesis made those rotations. I expect the same exact thing here coming out of Denial. I got to give the edge. As long as they can shut down Baskin, not allow him to get to level 20 at the 16-minute mark, this should be in Denial's favor.
I'm feeling different. I think SoaR have been very successful, and their composition will lead them to victory. I like the Fafnir pick from Jigz, and I want to see how it works out. And guess who's going to show me how it's going to work out? It's Aggro and Hindu.
Yay. Anyway, we go into this set, and it's a very important one here. Still serious for the time being, Aggro. You know, we've still got SoaR and Denial. They both could take #1 spot. It's likely to be SoaR if they can just find 1 win.
They just need 1 win in this set, and even if Denial were to get the 2-0, if SoaR were to 2-0 in their final set of the day, it would still be them taking home the first seed. So I expect, like you mentioned, this game to be taken pretty seriously because getting the first seed in Group D is a big deal. I don't think anyone really wants to go up against Eager. To be fair, no one really wants to go up against Luminosity either because they're excellent.
I mean,
but
pick your poison, right? I think which one would you rather face off overall? Which one do you think can you have a better chance against? Homiefe, who I interviewed before, he expects to get second here. It's an uphill battle against SoaR, but they can start it now.
I mean, it's interesting for SoaR if they want to go up against Luminosity because they're scrim partners, right? We hear it from both sides about how much respect they have for one another and how much they enjoy playing against one another. So it could be interesting to see how well they can do up against each other in a real sort of setting.
We'll start the game. You can see wards placed down by both teams around the speed buff areas once more.
So actually, Benji just chased Andinster around the jungle there and didn't allow Andy to back. You can see he only has 1 health potion right
So that
now.
just come into play then. I mean, he picked up a ward at the start of the game, obviously wanting to place that one down. But now, because like you said, he's not going to have that potion and he's going to have to be careful with his mana conservation.
And his health conservation too. I mean, normally you'll see junglers pick up 2 health potions at least. You can see that's exactly what Homiefe does on the side of Denial. So you're right. Homiefe has to be, or excuse me, Andinster has to be very careful about how much mana he's using. You'll have to see him walking around in the jungle mostly, or even whenever he's taking waves, just hanging out in the mid-camp pool, because when you have Bumba's Mask and you're in the jungle, it increases your mana regen. So he's going to want to spend less time in lane and more time in the jungle.
Well, nothing too special at the start of this game as well. We already heard from Polar Bear Mike, whose opinion on this is Denial looking for picks, mainly onto that man in the solo lane, Baskin, who's currently having to deal with 2 members of Denial in this lane. But Shadowq taking a lot of free poke there for nothing.
Gotta hop out there, taking a lot, like you mentioned. And I don't know, this is very, very similar to the composition that Denial beat SoaR with yesterday. I'd be very surprised if the same strategy works twice up against SoaR. They seem like a team that's a little bit too smart to let that happen.
Good at adapting overall. That's the main thing you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, Andinster and adapting have a lot of get a lot of comparisons, so I guess you could say that.
Oh wow, that was a really bad one.
We're gonna start. We're starting it off.
We're
dude.
starting early. Left-hand Harpy's being looked at by SoaR Gaming here. They're in a position right now, but they're waiting for the rotation round from Denial. I guess cooldowns too. So it's a standoff between the two teams. Neither really wants to do it. They're just going to look at them.
Okay, that looks like
Look
it is.
at
A
look
pause
at
coming out.
Ra looking at a Harpy and like, is this a mirror? It
He's
looks a
ready to
lot
go.
like me.
Yeah, it's got a couple more feathers.
Snoopy's staring intently there for a second.
He's like, yo, when I
is
get back
that
in
me?
this game, I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna destroy me that Harpy.
Gotta get that experience in gold and get myself a lead.
So nothing too unusual at the start of that game there between the two teams. Obviously, a quick pause coming out. We'll give you an update when we have it of exactly what's going on there. It shouldn't take too long, though. Most of the time, it hasn't for the most course of this as well. But Andinster as well. A good performance from him so far this line. I think he's been the real man to look at.
I agree with that. Him and Baskin, both a lot of talk about both of those players coming in. Can they continue to push this narrative of their place on the world stage as individual players go? Baskin looks like the best solo laner here today. I mean, Benji has that argument available to him, I think. He's looked much, much better here at LAN than he did online. But Andinster, I mean, you can't say enough good things about his performance this weekend. He's looked absolutely stellar on every god he's played.
I think the whole solo looked pretty damn strong for the whole weekend as well. Nobody's really like fallen off to an extent. A lot of people expected Snoopy to be the weak link of this. I don't think Snoopy's had a bad performance at all in the mid lane. Maybe if you had to point at someone, it still would be him, but
yeah,
not by a long shot.
The game that they lost to Denial, I would say overall, Baskin getting abused early hurt SoaR, and then Snoopy's performance in the mid lane on Agni, that game was a little bit lacking. That's really the only finger I think you can point towards SoaR, but every other time, Snoopy's been absolutely on point with the Ra, with the Giannis. It doesn't really matter.
And I think that's the thing that SoaR going to have to take out of this group, whether they come first or second here as well, is how we're going to see Snoopy continue to improve here, because teams will be looking at the super regionals coming up and looking at the exploitable points of SoaR.
Exactly. Still has to prove that his god pool is big enough, right? He's shown that Ra's in there. He's shown that Giannis is in there. He played Ra mid again and did really well. Again, no surprise there. But like I mentioned, the Agni was shaky. We haven't seen them go back to it, and probably for good reason. So he's going to use this time between now and Super Regionals to make sure his god pool is up to snuff.
And just make sure his positioning as well on those gods is the biggest thing there. Not necessarily the bad play of the god was bad. So this one, obviously, it's still 0-0 between Denial and SoaR as well. Both of them in contention for first seed. Denial basically needs a 2-0 here against SoaR, and also rely on Enemy, who they were competing with originally today for that second spot, to actually 2-0 SoaR for them as well, to give Denial the #1 spot here.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, I mean, it's pick your poison. Do you want to go up against Eager? If you get second place, you'll be going up against Eager. Or if you get first place, you'll be going up against Luminosity. In a best of 5, the winners of those semifinals will be automatically qualified for Worlds. So there's a lot on the line when it comes to those best of 5s. And, you know, who are you going to match up better against? I don't know. I don't think any team really wants to face off against Eager, like I mentioned, because you never know what Eager's going to bring. Exactly. You know they're going to be good, but what are they going to do?
You're not going to know where the meta is going to go either. That's a big point, because it can shift so quickly, and eager. They're the ones that kind of adapt the quickest and look for the special standout things, I should say, of the patch every single time that can really make an influence.
Plus, it's always going to be something under the radar, like Raw didn't really get changed recently. Yes, a passive buff a couple patches ago, but they were just like, oh yeah, Raw seems pretty good right now, and oh yeah, he works really, really with our Long Shen. Oh yeah, Wrath's really good in solo lane when you're playing Guardians, and oh yeah, split push. That's good stuff.
Yeah, split push. Everyone's favorite thing. Everyone's. Completely. Clearly, at the moment, it is going to be a bit of a technical issue. It's going to take a little bit longer, but don't worry, we'll stay with you for the time being, at least for now as well, because Aggro is still here with me, sadly.
Not sadly. We're going to help him out through a tough time, you know, a pause. You just sat down, you made your Hot Pocket, you're ready to go.
You used to be a player, right?
Yes.
What did you use to pause for?
Hot
Pockets?
I don't think I can say that on broadcast.
Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets. I've definitely paused not a scrim, not a real game. I've definitely paused scrims to go get my pizza that had arrived.
Ready for pizza?
Yeah, I have had to go to the bathroom before.
Okay.
That's a big one. That's mostly it.
A big one for the bathroom. There you go. That's the highlights of Aggro. Luckily, we should be back in game, though. Hooray! And it looks like the war over the Harpies is going to go the way of, who knows, probably Denial.
Tough to tell sometimes with those mid Harpies. Snoopy, that stare down didn't end up with him getting anything, but he is able to get mid pressure there by going to the mid lane and immediately pushing it. Electing to let Andinster be the only one to contest those mid Harpies means that Snoopy can get pressure in that mid lane.
Well, you saw Metyankey on that left-hand side, though, and he took a lot of free poke out of potions now. Is that Sol in the dual lane? So you're going to have to be very careful up against Vetium and Shadowq here, because one flop and root combo, you could be dead.
Very much so. Disaperate takes a little bit of time to go off. There
Oh
it is.
my
Perfect.
God.
You called it.
It's like I've casted games before. Metyankey's now running for his life. Vetium and Shadowq giving chase. No flopper belch available for Shadowq, so they'll take the win anyway, just chipping him down.
Dude, you didn't know anything. They didn't even kill him.
That was close.
It was close. Shell popped for Jigz. There is a big cooldown that Denial gets out with that aggression in the duo lane. So this means that any sort of kills that Homiefe and Hurriwind want to do in a 3v3 fight in the mid, Jigz is not going to have that shell, whereas Shadowq will.
I almost don't like the call that came out from Denial there to full clear the wave. They had put the wave coming towards him, but they could have lane froze against Metyankey there and put him in an awkward spot instead of allowing him to just sit at the back and heal up. He would have had to either come forward or go back to base.
They could have done that, yes, but Metyankey still has the purification, didn't use it there, so you really can't zone him too effectively. You could zone him to try and get that purification, which would be a win in and of itself, but electing not to clear it because Shadowq wants to go back to base, get his boots too, get some wards going, and try and make an impact in this mid lane.
Well, Hurriwind in the mid lane, level 5 already. More than likely going to go towards the Divine Ruin. We saw him do it earlier on. He is against the Ra as well, played by Snoopy, who's looked very good on that so far.
Yeah, Agni just does so well with Divine Ruin. It's so easy to proc that ability passive from a distance. You're able to throw bombs from a long way away, and the circle lines up very well. It creates a nice little, you could drop the Agni bomb into the circle of the Ra heal and cover that entire area, debuff that healing.
And not only that, for me, everyone always underestimates in some ways the dot damage from an Agni because of the passive, but that dot damage does refresh the Divine Ruin buff, which means it'll stay on a few seconds longer than usual on other gods.
We could also see Vetium go for a Brawler's Beat Stick if he wants to go the mage-style Neith build, but so far this weekend, he's really favored a more traditional Hunter style. He's gone for the Devourer's Gauntlets, Itch of All, crit, you know, the whole thing.
Very, very interesting. But now we've got the group up of the supports now joining the mid lane too. Andy welcomes Shadowq to the lane with a lovely little double tap there, no real surprise. And, well, Jigz answers back with a hammer to Hurriwind's face.
And all this poke, even if Denial were able to return some of it, it's going to favor SoaR because of the sustain coming out of Snoopy. He's got boots too, going to go into that Celestial, or Dynasty Plate Helm rather, and then probably into the Rod of Asclepius, really boost his team's healing up.
Some nice wards placed down by SoaR there, just in the red buff area and on the left-hand side here, where you can just see the sentry ward was dropped by Denial in response to make sure they can clear out some vision. Sometimes you do drop those wards in their face just to get the sentries off them, don't you?
You want to make sure that you know where they are. Jigz hopping over the mid camp, stuns out Homiefe. There's the double ult onto Andinster. Flop, still purified out. Shadowq running away with the rest of Denial, gonna eat a double tap, but that's about it. A bunch of ultimates burned on the side of Denial and nothing used by SoaR there.
They really look for Andinster a lot there with that engagement. Sure, Vetium managed to get the World Weaver off onto him as well. The purification was consumed there as well as the shell on the side of Jigz. But at the same time, I mean, with Andinster's purification being still active, as in still in use, it meant that the flop that followed up couldn't stun or find the knockoff just to find the follow-up damage.
The shell there from Jigz was awesome. Waiting for the Nemesis ult to be used before he pops that shell so that he doesn't give Andinster protections that then he just gives to Homiefe. You don't want to give protections to Homiefe. He can almost get double shelled. You know, if you see Jigz shell, he ults a target that's shelled, and then Shadowq shells him. That's a lot of shells, basically. He's playing a shell game.
And on top of that, Homiefe's ult is now on cooldown as well. With that ult being on cooldown, it does give an opportunity there for a little bit more aggression out of SoaR here. We could see Andinster look for some gank potential. I want to see where he's going to go, though. Neith is always a primary target for a Thor.
Yeah, that backflip, very, very readable. Benji just boxing it out with Baskin on the solo lane. Forces out the ult. Baskin uses his as well just to get some extra regeneration.
Meanwhile,
Benji under a lot of pressure, though.
Left-hand side, Denial have pulled the Gold Fury here. They're going to try and burst it down, but there is a rotation coming in from SoaR. Jigz is here first. Round the back comes Metyankey, looking for the steal away. And Denial actually get the Gold Fury, but can they win the fight? Shadowq under a lot of pressure. The Stilibus hitting home. Flops over the wall as Andy comes on the right-hand side. In jumps Jigz, though, going to body block the World Weaver. That's actually going to allow him to collapse on Homie.
Now Homie gonna fall. Jigz actually eating that World Weaver, not a good thing. I think he could have caught Shadowq and picked him up as well. Snipe from Snoopy will get him, though. He's not worried about it.
Wow, that's just a short-range ultimate for the most part. That's what it seems like to me. Snoopy gets off to a great start there. 1-0-1, and Jigz getting the overkill as well. I believe Jigz got the first kill, obviously. So first blood, the way of the support, and it's a greedy dwarf that got it as well.
Sitting at 1-0-0. Now the speed buff invade. Hurriwind just doing his best to secure Homie's speed, but it's not going to be enough. Speed and Gremlins going the way of SoaR. Baskin sitting at level 10 right now, just about even with Amaterasu, despite the Gold Fury going the way of Denial. That tells me that Baskin's been the one with pressure in this lane. The one time we've checked over there, that was certainly the case.
Over the all, though, when I'm looking at how all groups have gone so far, Aggro, for me, SoaR have been the shining light of all the groups. I don't think I've seen a team play as well as the boys of SoaR done all weekend long, in my opinion. And that includes EU.
I don't know. Energy looked really, really clean in Group C, as well as Orbit looked fairly good in Group A. I would say that they do look better than Eager to me right now, just based on the eye test.
I love my EU boys, but I still feel that SoaR look absolutely fantastic in this group overall. Performance has been pretty solid for the most part. They've only dropped a handful, if not many, games whatsoever, and they do look very, very good for North America this year. They have a real potential shot here.
They definitely do. I think this is the team, if you're rooting for North America, someone to take down the Energy Giants, this could be the team. But I think that Eager also has a chance to do it. Luminosity is as clean of a team as you're going to find in either region. Their only weakness, I think, is their predictability in picks and bans, but if they can put some work into that and really throw teams for a loop with some of their picks, they'll be right up there with SoaR and Eager.
It's funny, when you talk about mechanics of teams and things, nowadays it's all on the same page. It comes down to two things. It's shot calling during games, and on top of that, picks and bans. They're the two things that seem to be letting teams down on getting to the main stage.
When you get to the SPL level, everyone can press their buttons. That's what it comes down to. Everyone can hit their skills. Yes, some players are stronger than others in those regards, especially when it comes to the higher skill cap gods, but it's about how well you can position and how well you work together as a team, and that comes down to both shot calling and picks and bans. And one thing that all three of those top teams share in North America that I just went through is that they all have a really good shot caller. They all work together as a unit very well as well.
Well, SoaR still need a win here to make sure they do come out top of Group D. They have 3 games, including 3 games after this one, to still make sure that happens for themselves. So in a pretty good spot in this group so far. Fire Elemental's going to go the way of SoaR there. Currently with 2-0 lead and around 1,000 gold.
Just hanging out, basically just doing a little bit of a dance. Baskin makes the rotation, puts some pressure onto Homiefe. There's the flop. Homie's getting very low. Snipe
did not hit home. However, Andinster will clean that up. Baskin goes into the ultimate to try and force him back, knowing that Andy's in the sky. They're looking at Shadowq now, who's looking to try and get away. Forced to shell, knocked up again. We'll have a flop soon, but how soon? Great work from Benji to peel for him. But while this is all going on, this has just worked out well enough for Hurriwind to push out mid lane a little bit, but it works in SoaR's favor.
Hurriwind just bailed after that fight. He was like, all right, homie's done. I'm done. I'll see you guys later. I'll just be pushing my minion wave, basically. Homie, like you mentioned, Snipe was off the mark with a CC chain there from the rest of SoaR was perfect. Shell forced onto Shadowq as he's running away. Baskin starts off that entire engagement, coming around the back, making Homiefe uncomfortable. I mean, he's 4 levels up now. At the time, I think he was 3 levels up on Homiefe. So difficult for Nemesis to do anything in Vamana.
Bombs raining down from Hurriwind, looking to try and secure the speed and deal some damage. But the speed buff does go the way of Andinster once more. They try and get out SoaR, but Shadow round the back with a good flop and intoxicate. Gonna slow down the boys, a little bit of SoaR, but they're staying grouped up together. The focus on Benji, and Andy goes back in on Hurriwind. He's forced out. Metyankey now making the rotation on SoaR as well. They've got to respect that because the Supernova can deal a lot of damage.
Jigz getting a little bit of poke onto Vetium, but Just not enough damage to finish off Hurriwind. He's able to dash out in just the right amount of time. That looks like it was going to be a really solid fight for Denial just because of how low Baskin was on mana and health. Didn't have the ultimate at the time, doesn't have meditation either, so that would have been a good fight for them, but Baskin just able to squeak out. Jigz does a good job of peeling for him just by denying Denial the area.
Well, a lot of ultimates still available for both teams here, especially as we started to approach level 12's being hit, but Will Weaver in mid lane onto Andinster, flopped in place, the bomb's going to rain from Hurriwind, still not enough damage after the flame wave either, but the chop from Homiefe will clean it up.
Great CC chain, a World Weaver into the flop, the heal just not quite enough, Baskin getting pressured out of his own blue buff. Snipe is good to confirm one mid harpy, I think, and Vetium takes a lot of damage as well.
He did get poked out, but at the same time, he is also playing that Neith with the Unravel that can sustain ridiculous amounts in lane. Sometimes it's underestimated how much that can actually do.
Oh, it does an absolute ton. Here we see him actually going for the Ichival. No Devourer's Gauntlets this time for Vetium. If I would have guessed of what item he dropped from the build that he's been going, I thought it would have been this Ichival.
Because he gets a mage.
Exactly, you're up against a mage. I would have figured he's still going for the Devourer's Gauntlets, but this time skipping that late game lifesteal item to kind of get into more damage early.
Well, at the moment as well, you can see the two supports going for different options here as well. Shadowq respecting the fact he's up against two mages, one in mid and one in the hunter role as well here. So going for more magical resistance early on. Meanwhile, Jigz just going to go for the sovereignty for that extra protection.
So you could see Shadowq go into Heartward Amulet here, or I think Pestilence would be an excellent pickup, continuing to reduce the healing of Snoopy. You could see the early Divine Ruin picked up here by Hurriwind. It's going to hurt his damage output early, but overall it benefits the team more. He's not going to get the flashy number, but it is going to reduce the amount of healing across all targets, even though he doesn't hit.
And when we talk about the healing that it does reduce, really from my point of view, it's heals that are currently in combat in the engagements, as well as meditations used in those engagements as well. It will limit how much they do. Outside of combat though, when you reset, that's a different story. It's not going to make an impact.
Exactly, and that's why Raw is still so effective, even despite, Weakening Curse and Pestilence and Divine Ruin, Brawlers, you name it. As long as Raw is not close to you, it doesn't really matter. But it will also, you mentioned the meditation, the in-combat heals, it'll affect Metyankey whenever he uses one. Jigz with the Coerce, it'll affect Baskin, his ultimate. That's a really big one. A lot of times you'll see teams pick up anti-healing, even if it's only Vamana that has healing, because it's so important to his kit.
Good bombs from Hurriwind there. He's played in the mind games with Andinster now, because every single time you've seen Hurriwind go towards the wave, he's been hit by a hammer and a double tap from Andy. So now it's a mind game between the mage and the jungler in that mid lane every single wave.
And it's because Hurriwind doesn't have that Dynasty Plate helm is why Andinster is putting such a big focus on poking him out specifically. A lot of mid laners up against Thor will get that just a little boost of physical protection to make sure that they aren't getting hurt as badly from that stun double tap combo. And that's why you see Andinster putting so much focus on him.
And that's one of the benefits of this composition as well. You want to draft against Rob, but you want to deal with the Thor too. Benji takes a lot of free poke there. Baskin going to get a nice heal up. Homiefe still looking for a steal. Not going to find it this time, though. Ryan Harpies go the way of SoaR.
And setting up about 900 gold overall. SoaR at the 13-minute mark. Experience also in their favor, about 2,000 plus. You can see, though, across the levels, there really isn't that big of a difference anywhere. It's only in the support role that you see 2 levels on Jigz over Shadowq, and then a level for Metyankey in the hunter role, but Homiefe is actually a little bit ahead of Andinster. Andinster just hit level 12, and Homie's been there for a bit.
And it feels like Homie's been sharing a little bit more in the mid lane there, and whereas Homie's has been getting the back jungle on his own a little bit more. It's the reason they've got a difference here. However, left harpies are flashing, and we've got a 3v3 right now, keeping on the hunters, because you can see Metyankey swinging around the back here as well, ahead of Vetium, and with Andy going to the sky, it's a 4v3.
He's gonna dunk down, doesn't hit anyone. Shadowq trying to disengage. Homie, snipe off the mark, wall is as well. He's running away from Baskin, ultimate already popped. Jigz and huge supernova coming in from Met.
Shadowq still getting bopped down by Metyankey there, but the sustain coming through for Andinster to allow him to escape. Benji with a good ultimate to slow them down too. Baskin's big baby gonna fall back to his boys and regroup one more time. No pickup of kills there whatsoever. Interesting engagement.
Just a big old slap fight basically. Now Baskin has to use Clear the Path to get out, and here's the strength of this raw composition. You both used a lot of ultimates. Your both teams are fairly low, but it's the one that has raw that's going to come out on top in these engagements.
But to be fair to Denial there, they did a very good job of escaping with taking minimal damage there as well against that composition. However, Metyankey versus Vetium, and Vetium's in a lot of trouble here. Metyankey needs a couple more in hands. He's missed a couple there. Stellar Burst available. Sanctuary saves the day, and now the rotation is here.
Homiefe, no ultimate though. Met still able to box him a little bit, but the Retribution Shield doing a lot. Here's the rotation in from the rest of Denial. Sanctuary buys Met a little bit of time.
The anti-heal comes into play, and the flop from Shadowq keeps him Vetium in place as well. Hammer time from Jigz not going to happen, but Andy's wall may cause an issue for Hurriwind.
Snipe going to be missed thanks to the purification. Now Andy gets turned on. The Nemesis ultimate Vetium. He was the target at the beginning, and he's the one who gets the kill.
Solo lane is still trying to rotate to this fight as Snoopy's bravely running away on that Raw, now completely out of mana. Jigz doesn't have his ultimate up either, so has to use the underhanded tactics and fall back. And that was all SoaR getting aggressive, and that was all Denial answering the call.
Vetium baits himself perfectly there. Yes, he has to use Sanctuary. Yeah, it was all a bait the whole time, guys. Don't even worry about it. The entirety of Denial comes in, ganks Metyankey, uses his Sanctuary, not able to survive, even with the healing from Snoopy, and then a very quick purification from Hurriwind was right on time.
We'll give a little bit of credit to Snoopy there as well. If you watched him on the rotation, he spotted Hurriwind and Shadowq around the corner, and he did disengage for a while until they committed, because there was no way he could deal with both of them on his own. So he fell back, waited, tried to support with the sustain, but then Shadowq made the impact.
It's one of the most dangerous times as a mid laner is when you're in the jungle, rotating to a fight that's already happening, and then you get caught out in the jungle by the enemy mid, the enemy jungler, anything like that. You have to be very, very careful, and that's why you see Snoopy being there so much later than Hurriwind.
And most players won't actually notice what he did then and be like, why didn't Snoopy go in? Well, the high-level players will be looking at these games going, oh, look at Snoopy. He doesn't recognize when that stuff happens. We can abuse him on that situation. That time Snoopy shows, it's going to be more difficult than you may think.
Exactly. You'll get baited in. You'll fake the rotation to the left lane, and then you're able to sit behind the rock waiting for Snoopy to try and answer. Instead, Snoopy plays it safe, but Metyankey wasn't safe at all from the rotation, and it leads to Denial snagging up this gold fury here at about the 15-minute mark. It puts their lead up to over 1,000 gold.
And the Homiefe here, I mean, when in the interview, he was saying he expects to get second here, but they're really putting on a fight against SoaR in this game at the moment. They're doing a very good job of it, going toe-to-toe against this team.
3-3 right now, and the experience difference probably starting to head back more towards Denial's favor. Yeah, it's 35. Completely even in experience, 1,300 gold. Isn't really a whole lot of a lead, but it's enough for you to get good ward coverage in the jungle on your side of the map.
Yeah, I'm just looking at where the experience real difference is, and it's between Hunt and Metyankey, one over Vetium, but at the same time, Benji has one over Baskin. Very interesting situation there. As Benji a little bit too deep on this right-hand side, may need some support here. It's only 2 members committing, but Andinster is around, as is Shadowq.
Flop finds Baskin, gonna get a little bit of poke onto him. The rest of Denial here for moral support, just in case. You don't want to invest too much into Benji right now. He's level 18. There's no way you're going to kill him if there's anyone around.
Actually, when I look back at that last fight, as Baskin is getting dived on this right-hand side, you can see how low this tower has got on the right-hand side. And that was because Baskin committed to that left-hand team fight that they went for earlier on, SoaR, before Benji did. Benji pushed the tower down a little bit more, and it came into play. And now it's a bonus 500 gold for the boys of Denial.
And there it is. You can see the face-it player comparison here. Homiefe trying to make a play on a basket, but he's going to be able to dash out. The gold per minute, a little bit in Baskin's favor, but the damage incredibly similar. KDA in Baskin's favor as well, but that's nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, Benji isn't in the conversation for best player in the world, and Baskin is. So for these two players to be this close in statistics, Benji, for a lot of players, myself included, really flew under the radar this online split. I think a lot of people forgot how good he really was.
Once upon a time, he was definitely available to be considered one of the best players, but I think because people have seen his attitude towards his professional career has been a little bit, you know, troublesome, I want to say. That's basically put people at second-guessing his ability. He's got the ability, but maybe his mindset's just not on the same level.
I think that's definitely contributed. You're definitely onto something there. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, everyone at this level can press their buttons.
Yep.
There's a whole lot more intangible that go into what makes a player great or, you know, best player in the world, and attitude is definitely one of them.
Well, Andinster going to go into the jungle. Homie knows he's here, though, and needs a double tap anyway. At least a back tap. That's the main thing from there. The Riot and Harpies are about to come up again, and both these teams have done a very good job of contesting these. It's not something that we see as often as we used to back in Season 1, but it's very prevalent in this set.
And Andinster not looking very warmed up so far this game. Last ultimate was off the mark by the enemy red buff. The walls and double taps haven't been as clean as we saw the rest of the weekend. This is their first game of the day, whereas Denial have played, so that can be a factor, but Andinster not looking quite as sharp as the other 2 days.
At the same time, though, when you look at that, sometimes, I was going to say, it's really weird to talk about that, because Andinster normally suffers from the pressure. We've seen that in the past. Maybe the pressure's slacked, and now he's, like, calmed down a little bit and not super focused as much as he has been the first 2 days.
I think really it's more of a matter of he's probably just not warmed up yet. He's looked so good. And
I mean, to be
whatever,
fair,
they've already secured their spot at Super Regionals coming into today. He maybe doesn't practice as hard this morning. isn't worried about getting into game shape before the first game.
Well, he's still 1-2-1 anyway, and still 4th in the damage chart, so you can't talk too much. The red buff has respawned here for Daniel. They're going to take this away. As you can see, the left Harpies still stand here at the moment. The ward was actually going in the favor of SoaR, but the commitment to Andy is going to force him to the sky as Homie uses his ultimate.
Denial's just waiting for Andinster to use his hammer every time and then immediately committing onto him. With the Nemesis ult, with the Neith ult, they're just waiting for him to go for this poke.
But SoaR know it. SoaR know it as well. Andy recognizes it, and every single time he does, he goes straight up in the sky if possible. SoaR have been the ones to look for the initiations most of the time here, and when they do, Denial are trying to counteract, and so far it's worked out okay for them.
Denial did force the teleport out of Baskin, so that means he's going to miss part of a wave in the solo lane. Benji able to push another wave underneath that tower. He's sitting at level 20, the first in the game. Second on the damage charts right now. Hasn't been a part of any of the kills quite yet, but I assume that'll change soon.
I'm looking more at the fact that Gold Fury is about to respawn, and that teleport is down for Baskin now, so now he's got decisions to make. The way Benji played the last time Baskin rotated to that fight, he punished him with pretty much a whole tower. With a tier 2 tower this time, they could even look at trading the Gold Fury for 1,500 gold for Denial.
Exactly. Benji should really just sit in this right-hand lane and wait for there to be a fight to break out. Force Baskin to stay here, and if he doesn't stay here, just push down the tower. Let your team know that he's going to be there. You'll be there once you get that tower low.
And I think at the same time, Baskin would like to try and proxy farm so he can actually rotate to this, but I don't think that's why we see Benji not proxy farm himself. He's actually going to keep stuck to Baskin now to make sure he has to stay this side.
Exactly. Most of this time, you'll be seeing solo laners proxy farming each other, making it so they can rotate easily, and Benji identifies that and wants to make sure that he can keep Baskin in lane. That's going to be a big advantage for Denial for the next 95 seconds.
Still dueling away in the solo lane there between the two. No one's really going to die unless it's a major misplay. Both of them high enough skill level to understand when they're getting low enough. But in the jungle, the mighty jungle, Homiefe gets double tapped tonight. One more time, but once again, the sustain comes into play for SoaR, so all the damage Homie did with the ultimate has been negated.
Completely wasted there. He's sticking to the game plan, but the rest of Denial wasn't there to follow up. It's almost like a switch goes off. It's like, if it's a programming sort of thing. If Andinster hammers, I ult him, but there was no one else there.
Metyankey actually forced his Sanctuary there. A bit surprised by that. Maybe he was worried about the Intoxicate coming out from Shadowq, especially knowing that that route was down from Vetium, but the World Weaver's just been fired onto Andinster, who is forced to use his Purification and jump away.
Man, Denial do not like Andy. They're using almost every ultimate on him. Here comes the sustain in from Raw. They are not worried about this poke. That's two big ultimates that are down on the side of Denial.
Benji on the front line here, trying to do zone work, but it looks like we will see a fight between the two. Let's listen in to the comms of SoaR as they look to try and take this fight.
These guys are so dumb. These guys are so dumb. I'm dash. Hitting Benji, that's all I can hit. I'm zoning everyone. Yeah, I'm on Amma. I got stun on Amma. That's Amma. Oh, wait, back on heal. Do we have a heal? Yeah, I do. We should keep fighting while I'm dragging. I'm healing. Here, can we go gold? We can pull gold. Let's pull gold. We should keep fighting while I'm dragging. Agni dash. Bacchus jumped out. Bacchus jumped out. Pull gold. Hit gold. Hit gold. Hit gold. Careful, it's on you, Jigz. Sit on. Agni dash. I got it. Yeah. They're gonna come triple bomb it. I'm gonna default. Yeah, be careful. I have to reset. Nem's back with half health. Nem's half health. I'm safe, I'm safe. Can we go on? Yeah. I'm on Bacchus right now. Trying to keep him out from the aura. Get him pretty low. We don't have heals. You're a little bit low right now. Yeah, we don't have heals. Game's pretty poked. We just pulled back. They're trying it again. I think it's fairly obvious that like our initiation is awkward with this comp. Yeah. Now we're gonna play around after.
Well, those guys were supposedly dumb, but they did still manage to pick up Snoopy in that one, aggro.
And Snoopy just running the wrong way there. The rest of SoaR going with him, but he doesn't have the same sort of mobility that characters like Soul, like Fafnir have. He gets caught out. The Nemesis ult is back up off of cooldown. He gets exploded.
Well, it's round 2 now. Andinster does have his ultimate available. Baskin's on the right-hand side of the map here. Has teleport available, but it looks like they may be giving this one up. Jigz will look for a desperation play, possibly, but the belts from Shadowq will deny it. Denial get the second Gold Fury in a row.
That was close, man. If Jigz able to steal with that hammer, that would have been a big boon for SoaR. Instead, it's Denial taking a much more commanding lead. The first one we've seen so far in this game, 3,300 gold and 2,800 experience.
And it feels like Denial just taking each game as it comes, quite clearly. Their comms previously that we've listened to, obviously we didn't listen to them then, that was SoaR, but their comms are just very calm and collected. Yeah, they realize they have mistakes, but they seem to just be working things through slowly.
They work together as a team very well, and for a team that's really just come together in the fall split, that's very surprising. Shadowq been around the scene a long time, though. He understands what makes a team work. He hasn't been on a team that's worked since Season 1, basically, for the launch tournament, or Season 0 even. but finally found one now where it seems like he's at home.
I would actually class Shadowq's teams for the most part to be feeder teams to the top teams in the league for the most part. Shadowq's been part of teams that have looked semi-decent, that could have the skill level to go to the top. But for the most part, generally those teams end up getting broken apart by the top teams, the big boys in the league going, hey, do you want to come and join our team? And that's what happens time and time again.
But not this time, it looks like. Denial, it was actually the other way around.
It was
Hurriwind and Homiefe leaving a top team to come to Shadowq and Denial, and it's worked out thus far.
Worked out great for them right now, and now they're against that team themselves here. Hurriwind still with points to prove and doing a good job of it so far. 004, he's not 007 just yet, but we'll see if he can get to be that bond status.
That'd be cool. 007, yeah. That'd be a nice little British thing.
Why even bring that up if you got nothing to add to it?
I had nothing.
Why did you bring it up then?
I don't know, because you said it last.
Because you have no personal thoughts of your own, do you?
Wow.
Yeah, take that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. 4-3, I should say, in favor of Denial right now at 26 minutes in the game. Speedbuff about to spawn one more time for Homiefe, and Homiefe 1, 2, and 3 this game. Damage output, not the greatest, but when we look at the damage output, I guess we got to look at Snoopy.
Yeah, Snoopy's been the one who hasn't been able to find it. He had the one great snipe onto Shadowq to confirm that kill, but it's really been the rest of Denial up in his face.
I do love the fact the cameraman did bring up the healing straight away, because obviously he is a raw, right? So if we factor in the healing as well, then he's sat at about 10,000 total. So then he's about the same level as SoaR.
But overall, I mean, we've seen Snoopy do so much better in the healing, in the damage department on this Raw earlier on in the weekend. He still just hasn't been able to find it, and a lot of that's been due to the fact that Andinster hasn't been on his game today. It hasn't been the strong performance out of him that we kind of expected after his first 2 days here. Raw does need the setup in order to be effective in the damage department, and the rest of the team hasn't really pulled their weight yet.
I will be honest though, but I really do feel that Ra at the moment is a flash in the pan character in Smite right now. We've seen him come back into the meta all of a sudden, and from my point of view, it's because people have forgotten how to deal with him. The moment everybody works it out again, Ra's going back to the dumpster heap. I can see it coming, because this happens a lot of times. We saw the likes of Scylla. She was very strong and very meta for a long time. She got banned a lot of times as well, and eventually everyone forgot to ban her, but nobody picked her up because they couldn't remember how to play as her. But you always remember how to play against them.
It's definitely one of those things that happens a lot. The engagement on Shadowq gets knocked up, takes a lot of damage.
But turns it around, and there's Baskin deleted. It's not high wound anymore. Jigz on the run as well now. He's under pressure. The boys of Denial closing the gap. The speed of Benji is allowing his team to collapse, but SoaR doing a very good job of disengaging.
Sprint pop there from Jigz just to get his team out of danger. Metyankey tried to do a speed buff, but the rest of Denial wants that buff themselves.
Speed buff is going to drop down there, but I actually do think it was secured by... No, I'm lying. Shadowq picks it up. There's nothing worse than a Bacchus with a speed buff, man.
Bacchus with red buff is tough. I don't want to get one shot, dude. As a mage, I get one shot by Bacchus with red
Trust
buff.
me, speed buff on a support is the best thing you could ever do. Junglers don't really need it. However, in the mid lane, Benji overextends, takes a lot of free poke, forced to disengage. Hurriwind with a great bomb at the back, though, to stop the damage dealers, really making an impact there. Dropping a couple more bombs, just refreshing that Divine Ruin a little bit more, so the sustain isn't as useful.
And all the while, Vetium just poking down this tower. You can see he has gone for the Wind Demons, got the crit online. Shadowq's going to jump in very low. The snipe is off the mark.
But you can't juke a supernova like that. Snoopy giving chase with Jigz and Metyankey now. With Andinster now coming in with the ult, but turned on immediately. And Andy had to reposition himself. Going to get some sustain from Snoopy, but it does allow them to keep the march going.
Baskin is here chasing down Hurriwind. He doesn't have the relics necessary to survive. The baby gets revenge. Homiefe picks up Andinster in the back line. Snoopy forced to use a Sanctuary, but the rest of SoaR is still very healthy.
Sanctuary down on Hurriwind in the mid lane there, but Vetium got a very good route off onto Baskin, who's forced into the big baby. Still getting low, and the baby tumbles down.
Now Vetium pushing forward. Metyankey goes into Disapparate, waiting for the World Weaver. Vetium still waiting for it, pops it, but Jigz, like any good support would, steps forward and takes the damage.
But Benji still wants the kill here, running onto Snoopy, looking for Snoopy over and over again. The heal is dropped, and he's going to make SoaR stop in their tracks to get sustained. By doing this, though, it collapses them together, and Benji gets the ultimate off, which provides Homiefe the kill on Metyankey.
This fight has gone on for an eternity. I mean, it started down by bottom right and has raged ever since then, basically. You see the effect of these anti-healing items coming into play again and again. You mentioned it during the siege of the Tier 2 tower. Divine Ruin from Hurriwind, constantly getting reapplied by those bombs. And then Baskin goes up into Big Baby, and just dies because the Pestilence coming out of Benji. He's going to stop as much of that healing from happening, and it's just easy pickings for Vetium. 4-0 and 3 right now. Second on his team at damage, and I've talked about it a lot. These two, Benji and Vetium, coming over from enemy in their surprise story at Super Regionals last year. Both of them have had an unbelievable weekend. They're the 2 on top for denial and damage.
And just look at the builds coming out from the 2 hunters as well. Obviously, Metyankey currently dead, but he's got rid of Tahuti. Deathbringer on the side of Neith there. And you saw the crits raining down, but Jigz is here, looking to steal it away. Denial get it. Snoopy was close, but now Snoopy is dead.
783 on the crits. Jugs down from Andinster here. Hurriwind in trouble, but Baskin just stomping on top of him.
And he's going to pick up Hurriwind as well. Where's his attention going to go to next? Well, he's basically on running away. But Shadowq going to get a double kill with the Intoxicate there. The drunk man giving out the damage that was required. And now Andinster, well, he's going to have the wall up soon, but there's a World Weaver.
The wall not going to be enough to stop Homiefe from coming through. The silence, the slow might be enough to save Andy's life for now, but the speed aura from Benji just too strong.
This is a Phoenix here for the boys of Denial. They've done a great job in this game. Can they even look to Andy? I think they can.
They've got 16 seconds left before Snoopy respawns. A lot of towers still up. 2 on the left, 1 on the right, but it doesn't look like it's gonna matter.
Metyankey versus the world, and the world is gonna deny him the opportunity here. Denial take game 1, and Denial 1 step closer to becoming the #1 seed in this group.
I mean, Homiefe said they're happy with second, but their play doesn't tell me that. Everyone from Denial coming out really, really strong there. Homie on point with the Nem ultimates. We mentioned it during the broadcast there. The focus was Andinster, and it definitely seemed to throw him off his game.
It did, because the moment Andy kept being forced out of those fights, then the next attention was paid to who's next on the list. Snoopy, by that point, was generally the one out of position because Andy was with him. When Andy falls back, Snoopy's next.
And the Vamana that's been so dominant all weekend really got abused there. I mean, Baskin just wasn't able to play around the anti-heal items from the rest of Denial. I mean, it was kind of like what you were saying, where teams forget how to play against gods. I think teams forgot that anti-heal against Vamana makes that ultimate completely worthless almost.
Well, more people are starting to realize Nemesis is still amazing. That's also the other talking point.
Yeah, really, really good.
A lot of people realizing Nemesis really does shred tanks, force them out. Even the Vamana as well. Like, we keep seeing teams pick Vamana into Nemesis. The old days, the days of when Nemesis first came on the scene, no one would ever do that.
No, you don't want to do that, because if you go into the big baby and then Nem ult you, all those protections that you made for yourself are now Nemesis's protections.
So after game 1, they're now just looking to do the same sort of thing. I mean, they got pretty much comfort picks there, and it all went their way.
The thing that's encouraging for me is that Denial has beaten SoaR twice now in 2 different styles. The first time it was kill Baskin, make Baskin behind, and then we'll just snowball from there. This time it was make Andinster useless, and he can't do anything. And this is 2 different ways that Denial's beaten SoaR now.
Well, Denial get 1 point. The analysts are ready to talk us through that first game.
Thanks a lot, Hitman, and thanks a lot to SteelSeries, the official hardware of hi-rez Esports, making everything work as far as all that's concerned, peripherals, etc. SteelSeries.com, and you can get your own stuff, so thanks to SteelSeries. Moving on to a discussion about the game, however. Man, looks like Denial really came out swinging. And one of the big things I heard some of the guys talking before, Snoopy looked a little out of place today, or at least in this set.
I would say so. He definitely didn't connect on some of the snipes that we are more expecting to see out of him. You know, switching roles from hunter to mid, you know, now actually playing hunters in mid, but now going to the traditional mages. He's trying to rely on the synergy that he has with Andinster, but we quite didn't see the pressure that Andinster had in other sets compared to this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just between their mid 2v2. I think Hurry and Homie just had more pressure across the map. I don't think Snoopy only hit 1 snipe after Denial. They did an early Gold Fury, and then he cleaned somebody up, like walking out of their back harpies. And that was the only impactful snipe he had all game. So I don't know if that's draft problem or the way they played it or what happened there.
And the Nemesis definitely made a huge impact, I think, in the later stages compared to the Thor. Do you think that's something that SoaR's going to adapt to, like either try to take it away with first pick or maybe ban it if they're second?
I think they each got junglers that they like. I think the bigger takeaway for me is that when Jigz didn't pick a support top 3, I don't think he got a support that he could do a lot on, and I think that impacted their 3v3 a lot because Snoopy was an easy dive target because Jigz just didn't have the presence he normally does.
That's exactly